Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a second. I just wanted to give time for people to join us today. Okay, so sorry. We'll go ahead and get started now since it's 9. I want to thank you all for joining us today. My name is Carrie Potter, and I am an educational support coach with Family Matters. And so, for sake of time, since this is a 30-minute message, please put your questions in the Q&A. If we have time to get to them at the end, we will. If not, we will make sure to respond to those questions via email, send out something probably early next week, given that we're closed tomorrow. Um, for sake of time, I won't go over in depth what a parent center is. If you want more information about that, you can go to the Center for Parent Information and Resources. Um, provides a lot of different, information on PTIs or parent training information centers. I do want to say that Family Matters Parent Training Information Center is unable to offer CEUs for training participants, but certificates of attendance can be requested by contacting me via email, and Abby will put that in the chat. So I do want to say that Family Matters is not a legal services agency, so we cannot provide any legal advice or representation. Information received from Family Matters is not intended as legal advice and should not be used as a substitution for legal advice. And then the contents of this PowerPoint were developed under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. However, those contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. So I do want to welcome you today. This presentation is being recorded. It will be archived on the Family Matters website following the presentation. Please use the chat box. You can state your name, your title, organization. We'd love to know who's here today. If you're a parent, you can state that. Professional, what have you. Again, use the Q&A box for questions. And then please remember to, at the end of today's webinar, you will receive a brief survey. Please provide or complete that survey. That's very important to our grants and funding. So, that data is critical. It helps us know what we're doing well, how we can improve services, things like that. So we want to hear everything, all of your feedback that you have to share. A copy of the presentation and slides will be emailed out following the presentation. And then, at Family Matters, I just want to say that we offer, an educational advocacy helpline. We have the Educational Surrogate Parent Program. If you want to learn more about that, there's information on our website, or you can contact our office. We offer a wealth of different, or variety of different trainings. You can catch a lot of different information on our website or social media, like our Facebook page, as far as, when we post a new self-advocacy blog or a new newsletter is released, you're going to be able to find that on our website. And we typically offer a Facebook post to let you know to look at that new resource, or it gets emailed out. Those on the screen are some of the services and things that we offer. We have 2 full-time educational support coaches. We provide presentations and individualized assistance to caregivers, self-advocates, and professionals. So if you contact our office, you would be talking to Abby or myself. Okay, so based on content and some updated information we received before today's presentation on this topic, we may go a little over. I'm hoping not to, but if we do, I do want to be courteous and respectful of your time. If you can stay on, that's great. If we go over, if not, and you have to leave at 9:30, that is perfectly fine. Again, this will be archived on our website. So today's session, we're going to talk about early intervention extended services, who's eligible, how decisions are made. We'll compare early intervention and preschool special education, supporting families through that transition from early intervention to school services. We'll talk about a couple of real life examples, and then we will also have some, like, what we hope you take away from this presentation, as well as some resources that will be helpful for you. And those resources should also be shared throughout this presentation in the chat. So again, we're going to talk about, this is just covering what we're going to talk about. So we want to dive in and talk about extended early intervention services. So early intervention extended services are designed to bridge a gap between early intervention under Part C of IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and then school-based service or special education services under Part B. So this option is specifically for families whose children turn 3 years old between May 1st and August 31st, and who are found eligible for early childhood special education services and an IEP. These families are given a choice, either, to transition immediately to the school district for special education services under an IEP or an individualized education program, or to continue receiving early intervention services a little longer under their existing individualized family service plan, or IFSP. So this option is valuable because it allows children and families to continue with routines and providers they already know and trust, which can be incredibly important, especially during a time of big development changes. And families may just feel more comfortable extending these services over the summer rather than making a big change right before the school year begins. So it's important to remember that this isn't a one size all or fits all decision. Families should be provided with comprehensive and understandable information during their transition planning conference so that they can make a decision that fits their child's needs, their comfort level, and their goals for that upcoming school year. So it's a temporary extension of early intervention services, and it ends when that new school year begins. So at that point, if the family chooses extended services, their child would transition to school-based services with an IEP developed by the local school district when that next school year starts. So we want to talk about who is eligible for these services. So who qualifies for early intervention extended school year or extended services? Sorry. Not every child in early intervention is eligible for extended early intervention services. The options available for children that meet certain criteria. That child must turn 3 years old between May 1st and August 31st. And then they would need to be found eligible for early childhood special education services under Part B of IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So let's talk about that a little further. Again, the date range, May through August, is important because these children are aging out of early intervention right before or during the summer, which can be a tricky time for families to navigate a transition into school-based services. So many districts have limited programming or aren't actively enrolling new preschool students until fall, and extended services can help fill that gap. So the second requirement was that the child must be evaluated and found eligible for Part B services, meaning they qualify for an individualized education program or an IEP from that local school district. And there are some new information that we received on this topic that I wanted to go over. It was that children are eligible for extended school year service, or extended school year. Sorry, I keep using the wrong term. Children are eligible for extended services through early intervention if they're eligible for early childhood special education and for an IEP. And then ideally that IEP would also be developed so that the family can make an informed decision about which option is best for them or their child based on their needs and what is being offered. So, ideally that IEP would be developed so that the parent could look at, this is what my child would receive transitioning to school right now, and weigh out what the differences are between services, what they would be offered with extended school year or extended early intervention services, and transitioning to school. Also, it's not required that the family have an IEP developed to participate in extended school years or extended services through EI. And and it's not required that the family sign the LEA's consent for initial provision of special education related services in order to participate in extended services for early intervention. Um, Also, if there's a delay in early childhood special education eligibility determination, and that delay is an LEA delay from the school district side, then the child could participate in extended early intervention services while they await eligibility determination. Also, if the LEA or the district initially finds a child ineligible for early childhood special education services and an IEP, but the parent is pursuing the dispute resolution process, then the child could receive those extended early intervention services. So those are some factors that we were updated on in this process that I think are important for families and professionals to know. And I would say, if you have more questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us or the Early Intervention Clearinghouse or your Child and Family Connections office. We're all here to help you. But the heart of early intervention extended services is the principle of informed family choice. So when families are making choices, we want families to be as educated as possible. When a child's nearing their third birthday and is eligible for both Part C and Part B services, as we discussed earlier, the family can be offered that choice of continuing early intervention services temporarily if they meet the criteria, or transitioning to early childhood special education through the local school district. It's important, is an important decision that families are making during their transition period from early intervention. So there's a transition planning conference, often referred to as a TPC, that is held. This meeting typically occurs around the time the child's 2.5 years old or shortly after, and it gives everybody time to prepare for that upcoming transition from early intervention. During this conference, the Individualized Family Service Plan, or the IFSP team, which may include like a service coordinator, early intervention providers, and other relevant professionals, would sit down with the family to review what the child's current progress and needs are, the results of any recent evaluations and assessments, information about eligibility for special education under Part B, and what services look like under both options. So this can be a critical point for families to really need that information to kind of help them make that educated decision on how to move forward. It's important for families to understand the difference between an IFSP and an IEP. So I think, as professionals, we can help those families understand those differences and what those plans look like, and what, how early intervention may differ from school services. I think it's important to, clearly explain to families what happens if they choose to stay in early intervention for the summer, what changes if they transition immediately to early childhood special education, what supports are available through each system, and then how the child services might look different in terms of location, frequency, and goals. And these are questions as a parent you can ask. You can ask things like, what happens if I choose for my child to remain in early intervention and get extended services? And what would it look like? And how would things change if I choose for my child to transition to the school district and get early childhood special education services? So it's really a time to collaborate, parents and professionals to work together, so that parents have that information. There are some key differences between early intervention and early childhood special education. This slide gives us a side-by-side look at some of the most important differences between extended early intervention, or Part C, and early childhood special education, Part B. So one of the biggest shifts families may notice is a change in focus and service delivery. So in early intervention, the focus is on the family as a whole. Services are delivered in the child's natural environment, typically like at their home, or in a community setting like daycare. And providers work not just with the child, but with the family. They model strategies, and embed interventions into daily routines and help caregivers feel confident in supporting their child and their child's development. Um, when a child transitions to early childhood special education, the focus shifts to being more child centered, and services are generally delivered in a preschool or classroom setting with an emphasis on helping the child meet developmental and academic goals that align with the school standards and curriculum. So there is a bit of a shift there. And the services within the school or early childhood special education, those services are guided by an individualized education plan. In early intervention, you have the IFSP. In school, you would have the IEP plan, your child would. And the IEP is a binding document outlining the child's goals and the support that the school provide. Another key difference is who leads the services. In early intervention, the Department of Human Services is the lead agency. In early childhood special education, the responsibility shifts to the local school district. And that means there are going to be new people that you're going to get to know. There's new terminology, special education terms and language that you'll learn, and sometimes a different approach to collaboration. Um, Families may also notice a change in service delivery style, maybe like hands-on coaching in early intervention versus structured classroom activities in early childhood special education. The paperwork processes may differ between an IFSP in early intervention and an IEP in school. Um, Team dynamics, it may, your team dynamic may be a smaller family focused team in early intervention versus more of a multidisciplinary IEP team in school. It's also important to, walk families through these distinctions with comparison or compassion and clarity, just letting families know how those systems change. And as a family, you can ask questions, what is that going to look like? Who would be on the team, the IEP team, to help my child? As a parent center, we can help you with that. Many child and family connection offices can help you with that, or the early intervention clearinghouse. But I think by laying out, all the differences that there are, when you lay them out in a clear visual way, we can help families prepare emotionally and practically for that transition and make a decision that feels right for their child and their family. So there's a visual timeline that is one of the most effective tools that I think we offer families, and it helps them see the journey ahead and understand what steps to expect and when. So we can walk through that. Around 2.5 years old, that's going to be when transition planning would begin in early intervention. The early intervention service coordinator typically starts talking with the family about what happens after early intervention services end, and this includes reviewing the transition process, introducing the possibility of early childhood special education, and helping the family get ready for those next steps. And then we talked about a little bit already, the transition planning conference. This conference is usually scheduled again when the child's around 2 years, 9 months, and 3 years old. If the child has a birthday between May 1st and August 31st and is found eligible for special education, or, meets the criteria that we discussed earlier under Part B, then this is when the family would be formally presented with the choice between early intervention extended services and transitioning to early childhood special education services. So this is a collaborative meeting where the IFSP team and the family and other representatives from the school district come together to share information and guide that decision-making process. So it's the family's time. As a family, this is your time to really ask questions, voice concerns, and understand each option and what those options would look like. So I think by the third birthday, a decision would need to be made at that point. So if as a family, you choose to begin receiving services through the school district using an IEP, then your child would transition to that option. If as a family, you choose extended services, the child would continue to receive early intervention services under the IFSP until the start of that next school year. So typically school starts, as far as I know, in most districts around August. And if a family chooses to continue with early intervention temporarily, services under Part C would end at that point around August or whenever that school year starts. And then that child would transition fully into early childhood special education services with that IEP or individualized education program. So what's key here is that the entire process be proactive. Starting early allows everyone, especially families, to feel informed, prepared, and supported. So I think as a family, you can definitely ask questions, and it's never too early to start. You can ask questions early, ask them often. As a family, don't be afraid to ask questions. You're trying to navigate this transition and understand your options fully. And so asking questions early and often is key. As a family, you can also keep communication open with both the early intervention team and the school district team. So if you're looking at both options, you probably already have a connection with early intervention staff because your child's been receiving services. But you could ask the district, who is the person I can go to? Like, can I get an email address, a phone number to reach out to somebody for questions that may come up? Because, when you're presented information, you may think you have a good handle on it, and you may walk away and come up with other questions. So it may be important to reach out and say, who could I speak to if questions arise as I'm thinking about these two options? You can also use your parent training information center as a resource. So that's where we come in. There are 2 parent training information centers. We'll share information on that in slides a little further into this presentation. But there are 2 in Illinois. So we cover 94 counties in the state. And then there is another parent center, FRCD, or Family Resource Center on Disabilities, that covers the remaining counties in the Chicago region. So we're here to help anytime. If we don't have an exact answer on something, we have places we can reach out to get factual information for you. So I think by understanding the timeline and the roles of each party involved, as a family, you're going to be empowered to take ownership of that transition from early intervention and to advocate confidently for your child. So again, as a parent center, we are here to help you. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out, especially as your child, as you're making that transition from early intervention to school services. We're here to help, and we're here to help throughout your child's school career as well. So as questions come up, we're here to help throughout the whole special education process. If you need something beyond what we can do, there are other agencies we can refer to, things like that. But we're always happy to help you navigate and understand your options and your rights. We offer, trainings like this, webinars, workshops all of the time. Many of our webinars are going to be archived on our website, so you can access them later. We offer a lot of, support on understanding rights and options. We can help families prepare for IEP meetings, things like that. If you don't understand the IEP forms, you feel like this is overwhelming. I'm learning, I learned the early intervention process and language and terms, and now I'm throwing into this process. Your school district's there to help you understand that process. But as a parent center, we're here to help you as well to understand the language, what those forms may mean. If you're concerned or have questions about the IEP forms, we're here to help you. We can help you connect with other resources. So here are some questions that may help you as a family with your decision. So, you may ask some reflective questions that could guide a productive conversation. You may ask things like, what environment will best support my child's development? You may ask yourself if you're comfortable transitioning to a new service model, or, you want more time in the current setting or early intervention. Do you feel ready to engage with the school district? What services or routines will change if we make that transition now? So those are just some reflective questions that may be helpful. So we do have a couple real life scenarios that we can go over. I think walking through these can help families and professionals see that there's no single, like, one size fits all choice or no right or wrong answer. So for scenario 1, this family chooses to delay transition and keep early intervention services over the summer. So let's say the child's name is Jackson. He turns 3 in mid-June. He's been receiving home-based early intervention services since he was 18 months old, and his providers have built a really strong relationship with Jackson and his parents. So at his transition planning conference, his family learns that he qualifies for early childhood special education services and would have an IEP through the local school district. But summer's just around the corner, and Jackson doesn't handle transitions well. So the family is nervous about shifting to a new setting right before summer break, especially since the preschool program doesn't offer extended summer services. So the family decided to opt into early intervention extended services so that Jackson could continue working with his familiar team through August until the next school year begins. So this gives the family time to visit preschool, talk with staff, and prepare Jackson for a new routine starting in the fall. And then in this case, staying in early intervention for a few more months helps ease the emotional transition and set Jackson up for success when he transitions into preschool. So that's scenario one of a family who chose for their child to continue with extended early intervention services. The second scenario is of a family whose child is excited about starting preschool and transitions to early childhood special education immediately. So a child named Maya turns 3 in early May. She's also eligible for special education through the school district. And her parents are eager to have her start preschool right away. Maya is a very social child and loves group activities. Her early intervention providers think she's ready for the structured routine of a classroom. During the transition planning conference, Maya's family decides that she will transition to early childhood special education services right away, allowing her to start in the district's preschool program. And then the school in May, and then the school offered a summer bridge program, so she would get to continue services through the summer, building familiarity with the setting and the staff and things like that. So this choice worked well for Maya because she's developmentally ready. She's excited about being around other children and in that school environment. So these examples both highlight an important truth. There's really no one size fits all answer. Both families made thoughtful decisions that reflected their child's readiness, their family circumstance, and available resources. So I think as professionals, we can always support families through that decision-making process, ensure that they have adequate information on both options to understand what choices they have and make an educated decision on what's best for their child and their family at that point in time. So there are some resources. I know that Abby put a lot of this in the chat. We can email these out as well, but the Early Intervention Clearinghouse is a great resource for you if you have questions. Family Matters, our staff is happy to help you anytime you have questions. The Illinois State Board of Education is another resource. And I will also say your Child and Family Connections office is a great resource for you as well. So again, there are 2 parent centers in Illinois. Family Resource Center on Disabilities covers 8 Illinois counties in the Chicago region. They cover Cook, DuPage, Grundy, Kane, Kendall, Lake McHenry, and Will counties. So if you reside in one of those counties, you would contact FRCD and talk to one of their staff, and they would be able to assist you. If you reside in any of the other counties that aren't greened out on this map, you would contact Family Matters. We cover the remaining 94 counties in the state. So again, all of our contact information is here. We're happy to help you. And then that is the end of our presentation. So we are at time pretty much. So I will go ahead and end the webinar now as we don't have